So I had a random thought. I wondered with all this media and everything, anime's blown up. Being a nerd is cool now. A lot of people are actually making a point to, in a romantic sense, like get the nerds versus before when we were pretty ignored. We were teased about our interests. Now a lot of people are like, hey man, I'm just now getting into anime, including girls. A good amount of girls are getting into anime, and they're like, we're watching the stuff that a lot of people talked about in school that I never paid any mind to. Now a good amount of people are like, I'm watching Naruto and it's dope. I'm watching Bleach and the Soul Society Invasion arc or the Rukia Rescue arc and it's dope. And more of that is just happening. One Piece, that's happening too. A lot of people are getting into that. And it just gave me a random thought. If someone asked me, if they want to start getting into anime because they see how it's blowing up, BlurCon's a thing, DreamCon's a thing, especially for black folks where we particularly felt like really ashamed. A lot of us used to feel really ashamed of our interests, and to the point where we would hide it. Like if they're like the anime graphic tees and stuff that a lot of people like to wear now, if those were around at all or just more back in the day growing up in like elementary school or middle school, I probably never would have worn them because people weren't receptive to it. Now a lot of people actually mess with it. A lot of rappers, granted, Wu-Tang Clan, RZA, GZA, and them, Ben made Akira references, Kanye West, Lupe Fiasco. A lot of those dudes would make their interest in anime and stuff known as well. But generally speaking, it just wasn't there. Now you got those same rappers, other rappers. Key Glock makes a basic Super Saiyan reference in Let's Go. Who else am I thinking of? There's someone else I'm thinking of. Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan says Naruto is his favorite anime. He incorporated anime-based elements into Creed 3, which was very obvious. Yeah, like it's blowing up now. So my thought was, if I had to recommend, if someone asked me they want to get into anime and they're like, hey, I know you're super into this, whatever, what would you just recommend as a first time anime watcher? And I was like, well, you got some answers that are pretty typical. You got the big three. You got Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. You got their father, Dragon Ball Z primarily, but the whole Dragon Ball just franchise. You got any Gundam series. You got Sailor Moon, which is one of the main anime alongside Dragon Ball, primarily Dragon Ball Z, that really kicked anime into overdrive growing up when Toonami was like the main place to watch it. You got Fist of the North Star, which is still considered a classic, but may predate a lot of people's awareness. You got Akira, which is a movie, not a series, but still considered a classic and one of those classics that really put anime on the map in the West. And the list goes on. And even when you have modern day anime, like one of my younger cousins, she likes to do a lot of anime type art and stuff. She really loves Demon Slayer. A lot of people, Black Clover, I guess if you're looking at the Neo big three, I believe it would be Black Clover, Demon Slayer, and what would be another one? I'm not so sure about Tower of God because I know there's also a dark trio. Some anime fans have been like, there's a light anime trio and there's a dark anime trio, and I believe Tower of God is supposed to be on the dark side. There's some other anime that popped up, I think, last year. I can't remember the name of it. That's supposed to be part of the Dark Trio. I know as far as the modern big three, Black Clover, Demon Slayer, I can't think of the other one. I'll put it up if I remember it. But basically, there's a crap ton of anime to pick from. And there are in my opinion, a lot of good recommendations you can make to a first time anime watcher. If I had to pick an anime that is complete from front to back, no expansion needed, the main story is done as far as we know, they're not touching it. I had to tell someone like today, I would recommend this anime, then my first choice would have been Bleach, because even though Bleach is decently long, once you skip all the filler, in my opinion, it's better than Naruto, which Naruto and Shippuden together. One Piece is still going on, so that's out the window, and that's long enough as it is. And Dragon Ball as a series, because most people are familiar with Dragon Ball Z, If you go back to Dragon Ball and you're only familiar with Dragon Ball Z, which I think most people are, you might find Dragon Ball to be pretty boring in comparison. Because I was like that growing up. I knew of Dragon Ball, but I didn't watch it all at first. And then at some point, Dragon Ball Z came along, and that's what really got me into it. And at some point, I had to backtrack to Dragon Ball, and I wasn't feeling it at first because I'm like, well, comparing this to Dragon Ball Z, this is nothing. But Dragon Ball ends up being great in its own right. Honestly, between Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball, I'm not sure which one I like more. I may have to rewatch it again. Dragon Ball, technically that whole franchise is, I guess, is still going because of Daima. If you wanted to at least go up to Dragon Ball Z, and even then you would have to skip Dragon Ball Z, like the OG Dragon Ball Z. You would have to go with Dragon Ball, go to Dragon Ball Z Kai if you want to get the more manga accurate dialogue, as well as the pacing is a whole lot better. You have that. If you want to include GT, which in my opinion, the main benefit to watching GT is seeing Super Saiyan 4. The baby arc was cool. The Black Star Dragon, the Black Star Dragon arc, like Omega Shenron in them. To me, overall, it was cool. Not crazy great, but it was cool. Super Android 17 was okay. As a villain, like Super Android 17 was dope, but the overall arc was okay. I would say the best arc was basically the baby arc. That's where they just, I don't know what the writers did. They put a battery in their back when it came to the baby arc. I was clocked in. Because Dragon Ball is technically still going on, I wouldn't recommend that. Naruto plus Shippuden. And then if you want to throw in Boruto, technically that's still going on. But even then, if you just stick to the Naruto stuff, it's still pretty long. And the quality really, really fluctuates. One Piece, again, still going on. And then you have a lot of other stuff that you could throw someone into, but it's hit or miss, or there are names that aren't as big. Like one that I wish I could recommend to somebody would be Sword Art Online, at least the first season for obvious reasons. But after that, it gets very wonky. Like when they go to Alfheim Online, no. Gun Gale Online, okay. Alicization is where it got a little bit better for me. It was still kind of iffy, but it was still good to me personally. Radio Scale, I think it's called, the movie. It's okay. It was a cool thought. But, you know, SAO unfortunately peaks way too early, so I wouldn't recommend it. Black Summoner was one that came to mind. I think that's a decent start. Same thing with ReZero. I would say that's a decent start as well. But if I wanted to give someone a name that is already pretty familiar, has all of the tropes that primarily shonen anime, because I would say majority of anime's fan base is shonen more than anything, because you do have romance and other stuff, but I would say between shonen and maybe horror, I'd say those are probably the two biggest genres of anime, but mainly with shonen. If I had to give someone a recommendation that embodied everything that shonen anime pretty much always has been, what it still currently is, I would say Bleach is the one that I have in mind. I would say Bleach pulls from this one a lot. Just the whole foundation of it and all the other stuff. Ooh, Zatch Bell just came to mind. That could be okay, but they never finished the anime, so that doesn't count. But the recommendation that I would throw at somebody, between it not being too long, great story, depending how you look at it, it ended on a bad, iffy type note, in my opinion. When it was kind of kicking up, it was okay, but it took a while to get going, in my opinion. But overall, as a classic, funny moments, the main character is still brought up to this day. You know, just great all around. Like if you want to know one of the classics that really shaped anime, especially in the West, for what it is, and got a lot of us interested, I would have to say Yu Yu Hakusho. I would have to say Yu Yu Hakusho was a great first anime to start. It has the wittiness, it has the humor, it just the crazy gags, it has the, you know, super diverse cast. You can peep a lot of the archetypes, like when people say like Vegeta, Sasuke, I forget the guy's name, the guy from Jujutsu Kaisen that's a curse user. They're like, Hiei was the original version of all of those characters. You got Yusuke and Kuwabara, who, in my opinion, have very much. This is why I say Bleach really not bites, like not in a way that's disrespectful, but I would say the relationship between Yusuke and Kuwabara is so heavily, like, such a big influence on the relationship and personalities between Ichigo and Renji. But I would say mainly their dynamic. As far as individual characters, they're pretty different, similar but different, especially between Kuwabara and Renji. I would say they're drastically different. Versus Yusuke and Ichigo, you could blatantly tell Ichigo was very heavily influenced. Just the whole premise and setup, and even the way the story spills out. Of course, Bleach took a life of its own. It's its own thing, but Bleach is so heavily Yu Yu Hakusho coded. It's crazy. Similar to, like, one of the reasons I didn't like Black Clover at first is because you could see, at least to me, you could see the Zatch Bell influence from a mile away. You could see the Naruto influence from a mile away. The typical shonen MC being stupid. He's an idiot, but he's broken or ends up being broken. He's super hardworking. He lacks the basic, like, grasp of the power system, and somehow that power ends up being granted to him in some backhanded way or some reverse way. Or he, of course, has the whole internal, like, monster or something sealed inside of him. That whole thing, like, Black Clover's influence was so obvious. I didn't like it, but just like Bleach, it took on a life of its own. If I had to make a recommendation, I would definitely say Yu Yu Hakusho. It's still funny. Yu Yu Hakusho, or rather Yusuke, the way he would roast characters, like the line when he says, I think he hit a girl or a character that they thought was a girl, and it was so funny because Kuwabara was trying to defend one of their enemies because he thought the enemy was a girl, a pretty girl at that, and Yusuke ends up checking his family jewels, and then he was like, it was a little hard to tell. So then he went up top to well, no, it was in reverse. He checked the girl's chest first, and he was like, it's a little hard to tell. I can't tell if this is a woman or not. So then he goes below to check, and then he's like, the family jewels have not been stolen. That is one of my all-time favorite anime moments, period. That one cracks me up. As many times as he calls Genkai, however many times he's called Genkai an old bee or an old hag. Even when he inherited the spirit wave, he still managed to find the energy to insult her. But I love their relationship. Was it Kuwabara or somebody else made a comment of like, Yusuke, you can't do that. That's someone's granddaughter. And he was like, I don't care if that's someone's grandmother. I'll still knock her out. Like, bro, Yusuke did not care. Yusuke did not care. He's one of my all-time favorite characters, flat out. Yeah, man, I would say, like, Yu Yu Hakusho has arguably one of the best tournament arcs to ever exist in anime, and again, is a huge influence. The Dark Tournament arc. You had I believe it's the Four Emperors arc that came before that, because he initially met Hiei. What's his name? Kurama. He met Kurama, he met Hiei, and whoever the other demon was that ended up not being relevant. He met them, and the start of the story basically outlines his job as a spirit detective, on a regular everyday basis, which was cool. But once you get to Dark Tournament, that arc does not mean a thing to me. Like, whenever I've rewatched Yu Yu Hakusho, I don't care about the Four Emperors. I don't care about his day-to-day life as a spirit detective. I care about the Dark Tournament and seeing how Toguro just gets mollywopped finally. The whole build-up, how Team Urameshi gets thrown so many curveballs during the tournament, throughout the tournament, and they still end up coming out on top. Everything. That's great. My opinion, I used to think the Dark Tournament arc was the best arc of Yu Yu Hakusho. Chapter Black is different. Chapter Black is very different. And in my opinion, again, Bleach not bites, but is so heavily Yu Yu Hakusho coded. From the way they originally get their powers, different but similar. going through the day-to-day life of doing their jobs as a Soul Reaper or a Spirit Detective. Then the Dark Tournament is where Yu Yu Hakusho gets more unique, because Bleach doesn't have a tournament arc. But then Chapter Black and the Fullbringer arc or the Lost Agent arc, very similar in terms of the whole internal conflict with the main character trying to not necessarily flip Ichigo into a bad guy. That wasn't necessarily their goal, but the way they went about it, like a lot of people don't like the Lost Agent arc just because the scale was brought down. The thread wasn't that big. You don't see the Soul Society. But to me, the Lost Agent arc is one of the top 3 arcs of Bleach because you get to see how Ichigo reacts to these situations from a more sensitive and intimate perspective. The scene when Tsukishima went into his house and was pretending to be his cousin, and he's like, yo, what the are you doing here, bro? Like, and he ended up clocking him, and everyone else is thinking, yo, like, this is our family, what you doing? And it just screws with his head. And that was supposed to be the result of the Chapter Black arc for Yusuke. Of course, that didn't end up happening. I'm not going to give away all the details, but again, a lot of overlap. Of course, they took their own special, unique turns, but yeah, man, like the influence is crazy. But I can go on and on, but I'm trying not to ramble too long and make this video too long because I'm not trying to edit crazy long videos this time. But basically, if Bleach was already done, then I would recommend that, at least out of the big 3, but in general, I would recommend Bleach as someone's first anime if they had to get into one, and just skip all the filler. Please, for the love of everything good, skip the Bound arc. If you literally right after the Soul Society invasion arc, the arc right after that, skip it. Do yourself the favor. Just please don't touch it. If you choose to watch it, I warned you, but just don't touch it. But other than that, and even some of the filler content was good. To me, the Captain Namagai arc was good. I forget the actual name, but the arc where the Zanpakuto spirits basically rebelled, that was a good arc. Bleach is hit or miss with the fillers, but they, I think, have more decent, if not flat out good filler than bad. Because Bleach is not done yet is the only reason I would not recommend it to someone as of today. Now, Core 4 is supposed to wrap everything up next year. So we'll finally see the end of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, and assuming the Hell arc does not actually become an actual thing, because I know there was a one-shot manga, there hasn't been a continuation in the manga as far as I know, so there does not seem to be plans to continue the Bleach story in the manga for the Hell arc, possible Hell arc, let alone in the anime. You know, for today, if I had to drop a classic today, give you the tone, all the tropes of anime, super funny, still, you know, lasts through the test of time. People still remember it easily. Kind of gets you a gist of the whole genre of shonen anime and then some. Yu Yu Hakusho. That would be my recommendation. So if you haven't watched that classic yet, I really suggest starting there. You'll also get an appreciation for the difference in the anime styles between modern day anime and old school anime. I still say 90s anime style is goated. The new anime styles are cool, and I see why they made those changes, but yeah, I would say 90s was better. But yeah, I'm gonna go and leave that video here. That's my first anime recommendation. Like, if you've never watched anime and you want to get into it, that would be my recommendation as of today. But once Bleach is done, I would definitely say Bleach. That would be my other recommendation. But I'll go ahead and leave this video off here, guys. If you have any feedback, comments, questions, anything like that for me, go ahead and share that with me in the comment section below. I'll see you guys in the next one.